I'm Tamisha with Toolbox Divas. Do you ever find that you have a DIY project that you love to tackle, but you lack the tools and the knowledge to get it done? Well, you're not alone. Today I'm going to show you how you can bring your DIY dreams to life with the help of the Home Depot rentals. And join me as I take a friend along to introduce her to all of the things that she can accomplish using the Home Depot rental. And I'm going to show her how she can build a fire pit using tools that she can rent from the Home Depot rentals. All right, guys, let's get dirty. Being a new homeowner can be overwhelming to have big dreams for your home, but limited tools and knowledge. So when my friend expressed her frustration, I knew I had to step in because the Home Depot rental offers a wide variety of affordable tool options that can tackle any project, big and small. For this project, I knew we needed a miter saw, a palm sander, a table saw, and a couple of lawn tools to tidy up the yard before we put the fire pit in place. Next, we headed to the lumber section to pick up the materials we'll need to build the fire pit. Once we had all the materials, we headed back to my garage workshop, where I gave my friend a tutorial on how to use the tools that we'll need for this project, starting with the miter saw. Then I gave her some quick tips on how to use a palm sander. It may sound very simple, but not everyone knows the different types of sanders or the different types of sandpaper. So before we get into building the base for the fire pit, we're going to start with building the mold for the concrete top so that we can set the concrete while we are building the base for the fire pit. The concrete mold is made using melamine board, and I cut the melamine board down using the table saw. Now, I hadn't worked with concrete in some time, so I was very thankful to get the advice of my friend Glenn of DIY Creators on how to best build this mold that will make it easy to remove and the best concrete given the time constraints we had for this project. So for the center part where the insert will sit, I traced out the location for the middle part of the mold and drilled down through the melamine so that I can screw in the screws to attach the centerpiece from the bottom. Next, I caulked the sides, and I did a really bad job on caulking the sides because I made the lines a little too thick, but you want to make sure to make the lines thin when you're caulking and allow the caulk time to dry, because if it doesn't dry, it would end up drying as part of your concrete mold. But once the caulk dries, take some Vaseline or petroleum jelly and wipe the interior of the mold. It'll make it super easy to remove once everything sets. Using a bolt cutter that I rented, I cut down the wire mesh that we've placed into the concrete while it sets. So the concrete that we're using for the top is a rapid setting concrete mix, and it literally sets within an hour. However, I did give it about 24 hours before I demolded the concrete. And because it does set so quickly, it's very important that you sprinkle it with water every so often during that hour that it takes to set. Otherwise, it can potentially crack. It's very important to vibrate the concrete before it sets to remove any air bubbles. This can be done by adjusting it, hitting it with a board, or actually using a sand or a reciprocating saw without the blade in it, and tapping along the edges of the mold to allow the air bubbles to come to the surface. So while the concrete top sets, it's time to build the base for the fire pit. I like to always start by cutting all my pieces first and labeling them with the size. These cuts can be made with the miter saw. And I'm starting with the sides of the fire pit, ensuring that it's square during the whole process. To connect the side to the front boards, I started off by using a brad nailer to tap the boards in place while I screwed it in from the back. So having a brad nailer actually isn't necessary, but I did this so that it would hold in place while it allowed me to screw from the back, but you can also use a clamp to hold it in place. Normally, I would start with building the frame and then attaching the slats, and actually that's what I would recommend. But in this situation, I'm actually redoing the plans as I'm videotaping this and calculating the size of the different boards as I go along. And that's because I had to make a few adjustments to accommodate for the igniter for the gas insert. That's why I'm going in and I'm updating the frame to ensure that all the pieces are in place before I move forward. Now it's time to build the access panel or the door for the propane tank. This is a very simple process. The most complicated part of it is probably making sure the magnet is turned in the right direction so that when you go to place the access panel against the corresponding magnet, it doesn't push it away. Using a mallet and chisel, I'm etching out the area for the control panel for the fire pit. So now I'm going to fill these holes, sand it down, and paint it. And now that the base is complete, it's time to demold the concrete top. And I feel like this is the part where you're just like, drum roll please, because now it's like, wow, okay, so what is this going to look like? But hopefully I did everything right and there aren't any huge gaping holes in this concrete slab. And now I'm happy to report that it looks good. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. So all I need to do is sand it and seal it. So now that the fire pit is complete, I'm going to take this over to my friend's house. But before we can assemble this and put it out in the yard, we're going to tidy up the yard by using a string trimmer that we rented from the Home Depot rental center. So the great thing about these tools, this is a good way of trying out the tools before you buy them.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. All right, you're doing a great job. So this is probably the most rewarding part of this process, setting everything up. Even though this concrete top is super, super heavy, once we have everything assembled, it makes it all worth it. So currently my friend's backyard is not level. In fact, that is her next project on the list. So we used some excess boards that we had lying around to use as a shim to level the fire pit. Keep this on hand because I work with fire. But let's be real, buying all these tools can add up very quickly. So that's why the Home Depot rental comes in very, very handy in the clutch, because not only does it offer large equipment like bobcats and lifts, but you can also rent basic power tools and lawn tools. So I hope I'm able to inspire you to make your DIY dreams a reality. And I encourage you to visit the Home Depot rental for your next project. And you can also reserve your tools online at homedepot.com. So please hit that subscribe button and follow along at Toolbox Divas on Facebook and Instagram. All right, till next time.